I don't know why they've been lying, but your shit is not that inspiring. What's up, my dudes? Monster Energy Supercross 2, the official video game review. So, yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, okay? This could be a little bit of a longer video. I'm going to go through here and talk about all the negatives, all the positives, because I think this game definitely has both of it on it, all right? I think it's not like super in any direction, okay? That's sort of my first thought about the game. I think that, so first of all, I'm sure most of you guys out there are wondering, how does it stack up to the first official Monster Energy Supercross game? Or how does it stack up to MXGP Pro? How does it compare to both of those games? Because that's kind of something that you can wrap your mind around that you have played before, and I can kind of explain to you how it's similar to those and how it's different from those. So you can certainly make the statement of Supercross 2 is pretty much like a mixture between MXGP Pro and the first official Monster Energy Supercross game. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. I think it's taken some good things and some bad things from MXGP Pro. So that's kind of the road that we're going down here. I think that there's certain things that MXGP Pro did well, and they've kind of taken it from that and then put it in the amazing, some of the, I say amazing, but some of the, pretty good systems that were in the official Monster Energy Supercross game and kind of mixed them in some really cool ways. But there's also some things that they've taken from MXGP Pro that make the experience a lot worse, in my opinion. So right off the bat, one of the things that I enjoyed about this that feels different from the first game is just the simple, like, on the track type of feeling. Okay, so let me try to explain this to you. So basically, it really has that feeling now of like more of a gritty, realistic, on-track, like smaller pre-made roughness and ruts and stuff on it than the first game had. It's not as much of that like super flat, slick, super basic, kind of like on-track feeling. I said slick. I didn't really mean slick. I meant like glass flat. You know what I'm saying? This game definitely has more of a realistic style of where it's like the terrain is constantly kind of like changing here and there. I mean, you can see it on the track in the gameplay. It's just like the track has more of a, like a gritty dirt, small rut, pre-made kind of little rut system. Not like big hardcore ruts, but a lot smaller. It just feels more like you're on more of a realistic, kind of more rough style track instead of like a perfectly smoothed out track. So I thought that was pretty cool, and I thought it was cool how some of the tracks have more of a roughness feeling than some of the other tracks. Like this one right here is not a super rough track in the game. This is a little bit more of a smoother, wide open style track, even though it still does have a little bit of that roughness. But there's some tracks you get on where it's like you go up a jump face on a triple and it's so damn rough that it makes that triple pretty hard to hit. And that's the other thing I thought that they've improved on from the first official Monster Energy Supercross game to this game is just the jump like skill gap to it, right? I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying it's just downright amazing, but it is certainly better than the first game. I'll say that for sure. You can just feel it as soon as you get in the game. Just the feeling of like, on certain tracks where you really got to be precise with your jumping and all that. And, it's a little tough to actually explain that, but just the overall jumping and landing and that whole side of it is certainly more skill gapped. You'll come around a corner and there's certain times when you're racing other people, you have to go up the inside and you're not going to be able to hit that main triple. And if you come up short on that main triple, odds are you're probably going to pop off of it. So that's this is one of the most impressive things I've found in the Supercross 2 game as far as like being improved from the first one. This is one of my like top things that I feel like they've done is just simply that jump skill gap, really having to land things a little more precisely, and the whole system of where some of the main triples are actually big enough to where they become sketchy. Some of the bigger jumps actually feel more up to scale, more up to size now. Now, there certainly is some tracks in this game that are just downright boring. I mean, like, snore, fall asleep, boring, and you can just hold it wide open and not have to think about any rhythm that you're hitting. I ran into like 2 or 3 of those tracks on here that had that feeling, but the rest of them were pretty solid. I know certainly some of them, I'm trying to think of some of the names of the tracks and stuff. There's just a few of them that have a lot bigger, better jumps on them. It just has more of a fun skill gappy feeling in that sense. But so the whole thing with the popping off when you come up short on something, right? You guys know on basically MXGP Pro, they tried to go down that road of making it to where you really pop off coming up short, but it turned out to be super janky in that game, and you're popping off over 5-foot little small jumps. I think they've actually fixed that. I honestly do. I think they've went in here and really tried to improve on that. It feels like that MXGP Pro pop-off system, but not as janky as that. It feels like they've kind of taken some of the original Monster Energy Supercross game physics, mixed it with MXGP Pro, and kind of warped out some of those janky edges on it. You know what I mean? But look at that triple right there. That thing's pretty hossing when you're when you're racing other people and you're having to come up on the inside of people. Like, it's pretty hard to huck that out, man. And then you run the risk of popping off, but it's not super janky like you're going to pop off on a little 5-foot silly jump and feel like it's just like pointless, a pointless system in that sense. So definitely shout out to him for fixing that. I thought that was really impressive. So that was my biggest positive for this game. As far as everything in it, I think that's one of the things they've improved on the most right there is just the on-track design feeling, not just as far as the jumps, but also the dirt itself and just the way that it, the way they've got that more of a realistic, like 7 or 8 small micro ruts on top of the track, like pre-made ruts. So it gives you a bit more of like a roughness style feeling on the track, a little bit more of a gritty, more realistic on-track feel. And then some of the jumps being a little bit bigger, a little bit harder to huck out. Some of the rhythms on some of the tracks can actually make you have to think a little bit more on it. I'm not saying it's like extreme or anything, but I think they have certainly improved on that aspect, and actually, you can pop off the bike if you come up short on something. So it's not like super, super easy like the first official Monster Energy Supercross game, but yet it's not super janky like MXGP Pro. So I think they found somewhat of a happy little medium there, okay? Now, right here, one of the worst things I can already tell about this game is the whips. Literally the worst whips I've ever seen in any motocross game in the history of mankind, and I'm not over-exaggerating when I say that. Like, you know how we were all concerned about this before this game has came out? Well, let me tell you right now, it is terrible. It is like legendary level bad. I mean, I honestly don't even know if it can even be this bad. How the hell is it even this bad? I feel like I'm doing something wrong when I'm whipping or something. That's how bad it feels. It's worse than MXGP Pro. I can't even believe those words are coming out of my mouth, but it is literally worse than MXGP Pro. What in the fuck, Milestone? I'm sorry, but god damn, like, what in the hell are going on with these whips, dude? This is like beyond unacceptable. Whips right here. And whoops too, but whips as well. Beyond unacceptable. Like, I don't know what in the hell they're doing. Way worse than the first official Monster Energy Supercross game, and even a little worse than MXGP Pro whips. Like I'm saying, I don't even know how that's possible for me to say that. I thought that was rock bottom as far as whips goes, but it's not, apparently. Oh, man, it's so weird. Like, you try to throw a whip, it does the same damn animation every time you come off a jump face, no matter how you really lean, or, it's got this bizarre... It's like super hard to actually bring the bike back around if you really get it whipped out. Like you can actually really tell it's doing something. It's hard to get it brought back around. Super stiff feeling. Once you go in that whip animation, you feel stuck in the whip animation. Feel like you can't pull it back around. It's got this weird thing where it doesn't really feel like it's rotating the bike all that much. Like, I'm whipping as hard as I can fucking whip. And it's like you go into this slow motion mode. It's super weird. It's like once it starts going into that whip animation, it's like you go into slow motion mode and you can't fucking move. You can't turn it hard. You can't bring the whip back around very fast. So, yeah. So basically, there's a lot of good here and there's a lot of bad here, right? That's what I'm trying to get across to you. Like, I think they've made some pretty solid gains as far as on-track creation. making each one of the tracks feel different from each other. I thought that was pretty impressive. Some of the tracks have a bit smoother of a feeling. You can get going a lot faster on them. Some of them have a bit tighter of a feeling, a bit rougher of a feeling, a lot more of those pre-made smaller ruts and stuff on them. Some of them have, a lot bigger jumps. Some of them have some smaller jumps. So I like to see that variation where all the Supercross tracks don't just feel the same. They kind of have a bit of a different feeling to them, so that was cool. But the whip side of it, oh, God, it's terrible. It's like, I literally don't ever even want to try to throw another whip in this game already. They have got to put out some updates for that. I mean, have to. Not even a question. You can't have a motocross game with these kind of whips. You cannot do it. Oh, and by the way, just letting you guys know, obviously I have all the, more professional physics settings in the game. I don't have any of the handicap crap on. So, just letting you guys know, obviously I have that stuff on, but it's so fucking weird. The animation itself is so weird in the whips. It's just, I don't know, it's just weird as hell. So, I just think there's certain things that are better in certain ways and certain things that are worse in other ways. And I'm starting to kind of lean down the thought of, I'm thinking this, when you put it all together, okay, I'm thinking this is somewhere around the same sort of overall rating as the first official Monster Energy Supercross game. Maybe slightly, ever so slightly better, just because I'm a skill gap jump lover, and I think this has more of that than the first game had. But if you consider how much worse the whips are in this game than the first game, and certain stuff like that, it's it'll make you look at it more like they somehow, I think they come out more even than one is better than the other, as far as comparing the first official Monster Energy Supercross game and the Supercross 2 game. But another thing I wanted to kind of get across in this video is there are a lot of things that are very similar to the way they were in the first official Monster Energy Supercross game. There's a lot of things that haven't really been changed all that much or improved all that much. And I know a lot of people get that thought in their head this is going to be more of a 1.5 game than a full 2 game here, because they have to make it in basically 1 year of time. They don't really get a whole lot of time to make it. So some of the things that are very similar to the first game is just the overall leaning on the bike and the overall just the way it feels on the bike. It's very, very similar. I don't think you have a whole lot more forward and backwards leaning, actual hucking potential. I don't think there's really a whole lot more of that here than there was in the first game. It seems very similar to that. And just your overall leaning and turning, all that feels very, very similar as far as just the on-bike feeling. You know what I'm saying? It is it's 90% like the first game. You know what I mean? If I could just kind of map that out for you. But as far as the popping off and stuff, obviously that didn't happen as much in the first game, right? And the jumps being a little bit more difficult in this game on most of the tracks is not how it was in the first game either. So you've got that side of it, but as far as the way the bike actually feels, the leaning and all that, it's pretty damn similar to the first one. It honestly is. I think there might be slightly more of a lean back when you're going in a straight line. I don't really think it affects you too much in the air, but basically I feel like you can pull up a wheelie quite a bit easier in this game and just flip right over. But it really doesn't affect it too much in the air like you might would think, actually being able to huck over jumps and make a big difference by leaning back over a jump face versus just jumping it straight. It doesn't make all that much of a difference. You still have a bit of that stiff, stale, stick up the rider's ass kind of feeling on the bike. You feel like when you're trying to turn and maneuver, what you're seeing your rider do on the screen is about 50% of what you're actually trying to input into it. You understand what I'm saying? So, basically the rider on the screen, he's doing about 50% of what you want him to actually be doing. He's like a 50% too stiff, right? He ain't got quite enough of the movement forward, backwards, left, right, that whole side of it. But I think it does take some of the MXGP Pro turning ground physics. I don't think the ground physics are all that bad here. I think they've certainly fixed, it's kind of like you mixed MXGP Pro and the first official Monster Energy Supercross game, mixed those together, but you took out and fixed some of those janky little issues they had on MXGP Pro. That's kind of what this feels like right here, right? So it's not like super different or something super new, or other than the whips, obviously. That's even worse than MXGP Pro. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is the feeling on the bike is not like this totally new, reinvented thing, like totally, oh my gosh, physics are so amazing. Like it's something so new and they've really improved on this stuff. It's not really like that. It's not that way. Now, as far as the on tracks, and the overall the way the on the dirt feeling is and the more realistic roughness feeling, I think that has been improved, somewhat substantially here. So, that aspect of it is a little bit more improved, but as far as just the physics on the bike, it's not all that different from the first game or like MXGP Pro, you know what I mean? It's just not all that different. So if you're coming in thinking this is like a whole new experience in that type of sense, it's not. If you're kind of one of those people that doesn't really like the super stiff feeling on milestone physics, you're not going to just love this game. I mean, I can tell you that right now. You're not just going to, fall head over heels for it because it still has that sort of feeling. So that's certainly an aspect to it. But I think just the jumps in general, what makes them feel a little bit more skill gapped is I think they're more peaked. They're just more peaked out. This whole game has a bit more of a slower pace kind of feeling, but like more rough, realistic, gritty. Jumps are more peaked out. Jump faces, landings are more peaked out, so they're a little bit harder to get them landed like perfectly. Like if I purposely come up short on this, I was right on the top of it, so I didn't pop off, and that's a little bit of a smaller triple, but like you'll pop off just landing, trying to jump like a big rhythm and coming up short, depending on how bad you come up short. Like you can pop off doing that, but like this is one of the best rhythms right here in the whole game, I feel like. Pretty hard to actually nail this. There's certain rhythms in here where I know on round 2 in here, it's got that rhythm section on that. You actually have to really time that out. You got to really kind of slow down just a little bit coming off the jump phase. You got to time it out right. So it's got more of that skill gappy in that kind of sense as far as the on track, and I think the jankiness of the pop-off's not quite as bad. Certain things like that have been improved upon, but as far as the way the bike feels, physics-wise, it's not that much different, man. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm on the fence here, I guess you could say. I'm kind of in the middle somewhere here. Like I'm saying, there's certain things been done better than the first game. Certain things been done worse. Certain things feel way better. Certain things feel way worse. Certain things feel identical, pretty much damn near the same. It's got this little system where if you come up short on something, it kind of like makes you pop your feet off the pegs, but you don't fully crash. So that's kind of interesting. It's basically a way of saying, hey, bitch, you almost crashed, but you didn't, so don't do that again. So it's kind of interesting how they have that on there. It's just a little animation it plays when you come up short on something, but you don't fully pop off. So it's got that kind of side to it, almost like how Reflex has its little, when you come up short and then you can like hit the button real quick to save yourself, the little glowing arrows or whatever on Reflex on both the sides. But just the fact in this, you can't actually like, it's not, you're not hitting a button to save it. You're just automatically saved, but you just kind of run through an animation of popping your feet off the pegs. So now I did run into a couple bugs on here. Basically, when I first tried to start the game on PC, had a fatal crash, fatal error and crashed. So yeah, I had a crash like first time trying to get into the game, so that was a little bit weird and annoying. Then had another bug where the audio of the bike's totally fucked up. That's why I've got my audio turned off here, because there's something going on there. I got a bug where basically like the audio went from being normal to like this totally like muffled out, muted style bike audio, but everything else was still loud, but the bike audio wasn't loud. So they certainly still have some bugs here going on, and I don't know. I mean, certain aspects of like the UI and the main menu and all that kind of stuff seem kind of cool, but I think overall it kind of feels like a bit of a step backwards from the first game. I just think the first official Monster Energy Supercross game's UI and main menu and all that was laid out a lot better than this second one here. Some of this can seem kind of like a college student put it together, just a little bit more like low budget looking kind of thing to it. I don't know really how to explain that, but yeah, just a little bit not as everything doesn't look as clean as it did in the first one, and just I don't know, the overall presentation of the first official Monster Energy Supercross game, like main menu and all that kind of stuff, felt like it was slightly better. But yeah, overall, as far as like the customization and all that kind of stuff, a lot of it is very similar to the first game. I mean, you've still got a lot of the face options that were in the first game, a lot of the different bike customization options that were in the first game. There are a couple of new things here and there that weren't really in the first game. Like there's a couple of new face options. Thank God it's not like just all the exact same face options in there. Couple new options with actually, I think you can go in there like customize the seat itself. I don't think that was actually in the first official Monceu Supercross game, but the point being here is basically there are some new things, but some things that were very copy and pasted from the first game as well. So it's just kind of you're taking this and that with it, I guess is the best way to explain it. But collision, very similar to the first game. You still have that really weird problem where if you come into a corner, somebody can kind of like the weird way that the AI turns in the corner, they can jackknife and instantly pop you off the bike. They got a really weird thing where if you just barely even graze, I'm talking about little kiss them tough blocks, like not a big hit at all. What the fuck, Justin Barger? Get the hell out the way, boy. If you barely touch a tough block, you're going to instantly pop off. They have got something weird going on with that. They really need to fix that. I don't know why it feels like that in this game, but, tough blocks are just like insta-death, death traps, basically. You do not want to even attempt to touch a tough block on this game because you're just asking to pop off. Exhibit fucking A right there. Like, what the hell? You don't even get the chance to try to save it when you run into a tough block. It's literally like you're running into some concrete wall that just instantly pops you off. So they got something kind of buggy, janky with that. But just the overall collision, it's just very similar to the first game. You got a lot of like pushing potential. You can kind of move people out the way. You don't just instantly pop off when you run into people, but it does still have that janky effect where in some of the corners, just the way sometimes the AI can hit you at an angle, and it's like you'll just slowly be going through a corner and they'll be on the outside, and it'll just slowly pop you off the bike for no real reason. Like it doesn't even make sense for why you popped off the bike, but you did just by the way that the little bit of the weird collision can be in the game at times. So very similar in that sense. I mean, that literally feels like copy and pasted from the first game. The bike collision and the just the overall feeling on the bike, very, very similar to the first game and MXGP Pro kind of combined. So as far as the overall content in the game, okay, I think it's pretty much exactly like what you got in the first game. It's not really like more content. It's not like you've got so many more tracks or so many more different customization options. I mean, there are a few, but not a whole lot new there. You get what I'm saying? So now it does have the compound on it, which you don't actually have to pay for DLC later down the road, thank God. But still, there's only one compound, right? So it's very, very similar in just overall track content that you got in the first game, right? So you just got all the rounds of the Supercross tracks in that particular season, and then you got the compound, and that's about it. I mean, it does have the track editor, but just overall content-wise, very, very similar to what you expect. I mean, and really, it's not enough, in my opinion, track content-wise. It's just nowhere near enough. I think this would be so much better of an experience, so much more of a game. They just had more motocross tracks to it. Like, why not? Why wouldn't you? It makes no sense. Like, why wouldn't you throw in 2 or 3 motocross tracks? Would have made this shit so much better, so much more replayability, so much more fun to it versus just on the Supercross tracks and then one free ride track. It's like, damn, man. It just kills so much of the potential of the game when it's like that. But, yeah, I mean, that's basically, it's what you expect content-wise from a milestone motocross game. Very minimalistic, just putting in just what's required. You know what I mean? Just enough in there to where it's not like, oh my God, this isn't even a game. They put just enough in there. They don't go far and beyond on giving you content, that's for sure. And especially with a game like this, it's got a lot of rehash stuff from the first game, just in general. Oh shit, fucking wall. Just in general with the customization options, the way the bikes and all that kind of stuff, carrying over some of the faces from the first game, all this stuff that's carried over, you would think they would be like, hey, maybe we can give these guys more track content since we carry over so much from the first game. It's like, let's maybe actually try to make this Supercross 2 like more of a new game, more of a whole different thing than the first game. Let's give you a couple motocross tracks. Let's throw a damn hill climb section in there, or an enduro race track, or something, something. Oh, and by the way, no two-strokes. No two-strokes. No 50cc bikes, no cool shit like that, so none of that's in there. Don't expect any of that, right? Don't expect any of the cool stuff you get in some of the MX versus ATV games, like 125 two-strokes, 250 two-strokes, 500s. There's none of that cool shit in here. It's minimalistic in a lot of the content ways. That's what I'm trying to get at. And Milestone is known for doing that. They're just known for it. Like, one free ride compound, whereas most motocross games have 3 free ride tracks on them, and motocross tracks and supercross tracks in the same game, and then some sort of little enduro or waypoint style track series to it. But the Milestone games just don't have that in them. They just don't. It's like, hey, we're going to give you the supercross replica tracks and then 1 free ride compound. It's all you get, bud. It's all you get. So, I guess in my mind, I just always get the thought of like, it has so much potential and they just fall short in areas with these Milestone games. They don't capitalize on certain things that are right in front of their face, I guess. And that's why it's so sad, is because there's so much potential for it. Like, the base of it is there. Things are there to potentially be great, but it's just hard for Milestone to ever actually push it to that super greatness point, in my opinion. It's just hard for them to do it. Like, they'll get something right, but then get something else totally wrong. They'll change something and really improve something, but then they'll change something else and totally ruin something else. You get what I'm saying? So it's hard for them to ever, like, put it all together, I guess is the right way to put it. But kind of cool, this track right here, when you do a time attack on it, it's got the whole like shadows and stuff on the track. Thought that was cool. Made this track feel super different than some of the other ones. So some of that is interesting and cool. The graphics on here are similar to the first one. I don't think they're like crazy better than the first game. Certainly not. I think it's just on par, or maybe slightly a little bit they're just a little bit different, just slightly different, but not really better graphical wise, which when it's just a game coming out the very next year, you're not going to expect it to be like totally amazing new graphics or something, but a lot of similarities here. I mean, I talk about the on tracks being improved and jump faces and roughness on the on track, stuff like that being improved. I mean, I'm going to shout them out for that, like, because that's massive in my opinion. That's actually gameplay changing stuff. So some of you guys thinking I'm just a Milestone hater, like, no, dude, I'm going to shout them out for that. Like, I'm going to give them mad props for improving on that stuff. And the pop-off system, I think they've got that a lot closer to where it needs to be. Doesn't have that MXGP Pro janky feeling, but you still have the potential to pop off. Super hats off to you, Milestone, for really improving on that. Thank you. These are all massive things that really help with the actual gameplay experience and riding on the track. Now, some of that other shit, like the track editor and the graphics and the rain mode and the mud tracks, all that is very, very similar to the first game. A lot of people would consider it, copy and paste from the first game. So there is a lot of that in there. Don't get my words twisted in thinking like it's just a whole new game. Oh my gosh, it's so different. It's not that different, bro. It's not that different. You could certainly make the argument that it's a 0.5 game and not a whole new 2 game. I would call this like a 0.7, like a 1.7. This is like Monster Energy Supercross 1.7. You know what I mean? That's where I would put it. I wouldn't put it totally down to just a 1.5. I'd put it about like a 1.7, Not like a full-blown second game, but a little bit more than just a half of a more of a game. I don't know how to explain it. It's weird. But if it didn't have all these on-track improvements and more of a skill gap in that sense, it would have been more of just a 0.5, but that's where I would put it. Like a, Monster Energy Supercross 1.7. And overall rating-wise, like I said, I mean, the first game, if you were one of those people that gave it like a 7, I'd probably give this one a 7. Does some things better, does some things worse. That's kind of where I'm at on it, man. So, yeah, that's my opinion on it. I know it's still somewhat early, so yeah, there is time for them to update it and change things and whatever, but I'm just this is just the initial, review of it. I would way rather play this than MXGP Pro. Now, it's going to be a bit of a toss-up, me thinking about would I rather play this than the first official Monster Energy Supercross game. I certainly would as far as like on-track skill gap-wise and stuff like that, but when it comes to whip movement, like jump whip movement, stuff like that, I don't know. I still think I'd rather play the first game in that type of sense. And certain elements I like better in the first game for sure than I do this one, but yeah, I mean, you can see the terrain deformation right here. Like, yeah, it is doing a little bit, but not really a whole lot. I mean, you can ride with, the full gate of dudes here, and it's not really going to make that crazy of a difference. I mean, it's probably slightly improved from the first game, right? Like, maybe a little bit. I mean, you can see it actually seeming to do a little bit more, but they're not going to be like hard. It's not like you're going to make a hardcore rut in a corner or anything like that. You're not going to really make a difference on the track. It's just not really going to be that way. But yeah, they have got to update the whips, make a patch to fix that. They have to. Like, I don't even think that's an option for them really to not do that. Like, pretty much need to do that, like, without a doubt. So yeah. But that's just my overall take on it as far as, like, is it worth the money? Should you buy it? I'm kind of like 50-50 on it for the mass majority of people. I mean, if you just absolutely loved the first one for whatever reason, then yeah, it's probably worth the money to you. If you absolutely hated the first one, don't get this one. It's not a totally reinvention, super different thing. But if you were in the middle on the first game, then maybe you would want to buy it, maybe you wouldn't. I'm just 50-50 on this motherfucker. I don't know any other way to say it. Like, I'm in the middle somewhere here. Certain things are worse than I expected, certain things are better than I expected, and that's but there's a lot of similar to it as well. So yeah, like, I don't know how to explain it. I mean, I'm really impressed with some fixes and changes they've done, really disappointed with some fixes and changes they've done. Not really fixes, pretty much destructions, but certainly I think if they would have taken a year off, like I said, an extra year off, instead of releasing this game this year, going in there and releasing this game in 2020 and making even more improvements to it, that would have been a better way to go about doing it. I mean, this feels like they're making strides, but they're just not quite where it needs to be. They're not quite there. And I think if they would have took that extra year off, you would have got that full-blown next game, $60 AAA worthy, hell yeah, potentially legendary potential for the game and all that. It would have been able to be that if they would have took an extra year off to make it. So yeah, man, either way, appreciate you guys watching all the videos. Later, dudes.